Okay, let's get started. Morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Excited to have you here today. Today with us, we have Mark Zerka, who's going to be leading our presentation on building a cohesive brand identity. So just a little bit about Mark. He's an experienced strategist and entrepreneur in the business field, focusing on technology and ICT as an enabler to any vertical. Mark has been running his own consulting firm, Strategy Up, which he established in 2014. Strategy Up is 100% Canadian company based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, where he's advising and assisting small and medium enterprises and startup companies to become successful. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us today. He's a familiar face for our webinars and workshops, and he does a lot of trainings all around the province. So really lucky to have him here today. Just a few housekeeping rules. We're hoping to have a discussion in today's session, so please feel free to engage with us in the chat. I will also just take some time to give everybody access to their mic as well, just because this webinar style doesn't allow that when you initially log in. So if you have any questions, just unmute yourself and you can ask Mark as he goes, but we'll also have some time at the end for a little Q&A. So otherwise, let's get started. I'll hand it over to you, Mark. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you so much, Bimbai, for inviting me again to one of the webinars that you are hosting. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for also being here. And I know that you are all busy, so carving 1 hour of your time today is really appreciated. So as we said, this is going to be or I want it to be an interactive session. So while I am going through the slides and the discussion, please feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question or put it in the chat. Or if you want to add or give an opinion or share your experience as well with us, that would be great for us to also understand how you are handling your branding. So before starting, I just want to give you an overview of where I am coming from. I worked in my life in 6 different countries on 4 different continents. I am mainly a marketer and a strategist, and I've been doing that probably for the past 30 years, if maybe a little bit less than that. And I am going to try to give you different examples around the world, but also what is important for us is to understand why branding is important. So starting by branding, definitely branding is an image that is going to pay off. Why it's paying off? Because everybody is visual, right? Most of us, we are visual. If you go back to the basics of communication between the verbal, non-verbal, paraverbal, and visual identities, we mainly remember images. We might mainly remember videos. We mainly remember scenes that we have seen. And very rarely you're going to remember word for word what is happening. So creating a brand, a strong brand that is going to resonate with your customers, with your target audience, is extremely important. So for that, it's one of the key elements that is going to define who you are and what you are doing. Mainly what you are doing, because customers or your target audience or your prospects, they need to first of all understand what you're doing before they start engaging with you. And branding is one element of how you represent yourself in the market and to your customers. So just before I start, you are all seeing my screen or not? Can I just get a thumbs up? Yes, no? Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you. So let's start by understanding who you want to be. Like when we do branding, there is something that, major terminologies, brand identity, brand tone, brand voice. So all these are things that we talk about when we are building a brand. So we need to understand the character that you want to give to your brand. And I will mainly focus in this webinar on the personal branding aspect. But at the end, I will give you, in a way, a comparison or a difference between corporate branding and personal branding, and why it would be interesting to look at them in two different approaches. So just to give you an idea before I start, like if I give you the example of my business, uh, we are a small business. I am the founder. Uh, and I decided to go to corporate branding. I decided not to go for my personal branding. So if you notice, the brand that you see here, Strategy Up, is my business brand. So when I communicate, when I do business, when I try to represent what I am doing, I don't represent as Mark Zirka Incorporated or Mark Zirka Limited. I represent Strategy Up. But this is my personal preference. And I know many of you and are mainly looking as well at doing a personal brand where the business is you, and without you there is no business. So this is why I want to focus a little bit on personal branding, because in our market we are, all of us, small businesses, and I noticed that many are focusing on having a personal brand. So when we want to know who we want to be, let's look at all these different characters that I put here, right? So Mr. Bean, who is the Rowan Atkinson, right? Who is well known as Mr. Bean. So he's the jester, right? So he's the funny person. He's going to pass messages through fun and entertainment. Then you have Oprah, of course, who is in a way fighting causes and supporting people. So she's in a way what we call the everyman, uh, uh, in a way, archetype or brand archetype. Then you have Steve Jobs, who is the creator. Then you have Paris Hilton, who is the innocent, the lover. She's creating the glamour around her brand. Then, of course, we have James Bond, who is the ruler, who is the one who is in control. And then, of course, we have Richard Branson, who is the owner of the Virgin brand, and he's the hero, he's the magician, he's bringing things to life, he's bringing solution through magic, because Virgin, if you go through the Virgin brand, it's although it is corporate and and delivers value to the market, but also it's a very fun brand. So there is some magic around what they are doing. So it's very important to define what we want to be first, right? And there is a difference between, or you need to combine what you want to be with your target audience. Like, for example, if I want to be a jester, right? Someone who is funny, who is delivering through fun and entertainment, but my target audience, it doesn't have affinity with my identity, then we will have a big problem, because I will be trying to push to my target audience an identity that they are not going to resonate with. And then we wonder why we don't have customers, why we don't have high level of engagement on social media, why we are not popular, why we are not growing on sales, and all this kind of stuff. So it's very important that you combine your personal identity, of course, with your character, with the way of living, with who you are, but also make sure that you are aligning it with the preferences and the needs and the requirements of your target audience. So most of the time I say that when you want to build a brand, the brand should be built based on your target audience preferences and not only on your personal preference as a business owner or a founder of an organization. So keep this in mind, because this is going to define you all the way from the minute you create that brand until the day you decide that this brand wouldn't exist. You are defined by who you are. So it's very difficult to change your brand identity and the character of the brand along the way, right? And if we take examples of many international brands, you see like Nike, how it evolved from the 1930s until early 2000s. It changed a lot, but it took them 70 years in a way to change from how they started until where they are today. So changing a brand identity is not a flick of a switch, is not going to happen overnight. So you need to really think it. So be careful when you want to create your brand because it's going to stick with you for a very, very long time. So now when we talk about personal branding, the question is, what is personal branding? The personal branding is centered around the individual. So it is going to reflect in a way your personality, your level of expertise. What is your unique value proposition? I'm going to talk a little bit later about the unique value proposition. So it's a lot about you, right? And we see it, and I've seen it in the market. Like if I look at, the realtors that we have in this market, or the financial advisors that we have in this market, or the insurance brokers that we have. They are all trying to put their personal identity, although they are part of a bigger brand, simply because of regulatory needs that they need to be part of like a big brand that is overseeing their operation. But still, when they are reaching out to you, when they are sending some kind of personal messages, you feel that they are very centered around the individual and how they behave and their character. Also, the personal brand is very personal and conversational. It's not, an official communication. It's more relatable. It's more one-on-one. And this is very important because it is driven by emotions. Why it is driven by emotions? Simply because, if I want to go back to the basics of marketing, marketing is about talking to the emotions. Marketing is not about talking to the brain. We don't want the customer to be rational. We want the customer to be emotional, right? Because emotional buying is, first of all, easier to convince an emotional person rather than a rational person. And then this is how we build affinities with brands. Right? Like, for example, think about any brand that you are buying. And if you are a loyal customer to that brand, every time you are having an interaction with that brand, you feel some level of satisfaction. Satisfaction is an emotion. Satisfaction is not a rational thing. So when we want to communicate and when we want to win the customer's business, we need to talk to their emotions. And this is why a personal brand is even more emotional than a corporate brand. And the personal brand is evolving with the individual. It evolves with your career. So, for example, if you build a personal brand and let's say you are a fresh graduate, you might have a certain brand identity. And of course, being a fresh graduate, you are in your early 20s. So your character, the way of thinking, the way of behaving, is very different than when you are in your mid 40s or 50s. And you would understand that at some point you want to change because you are maturing. When I am talking about maturity, is not only the simple definition of being mature as being a grown up or not, but it's the business maturity, is the maturity of how you deal with customers, and then it's also of the maturity of what you want to do and mainly what you don't want to do anymore. Because maybe when you are a younger person, you are willing to have, or to do many things because you are still, hungry for growing the business and trying to bring actually food to your table. So sometimes anything could work. But the more you evolve and the more your business is stable and the more you establish yourself and your market, then you start really defining who you are and what you want and what you don't want to do. And this is why your personal brand would grow with your career path, and also based on your personal growth and preferences and business maturity around who you want to be. Uh, Also, that is very important. What is very important in the personal brand is that since you are at the center of the brand, since the brand is you and you is the brand, and then in a way, there is no business without you. Like if, let's say, you want to go on vacation for a week, then this business is stopping for a week. There is no one to follow up and there is no one to push forward, right? So this is why it relies a lot on your personal credibility. Right, so it's very important that we develop credibility, expertise, and how we do that, we develop it through relationship. And building relationships is completely a different beast that we're not going to talk about today in details, but the key to grow and to sell, and honestly, especially in a market that is like ours, a small market where almost everybody knows everyone, and like I've seen some names, I am seeing your names here. A couple of you, maybe we never met before, but I know your names, right? I know that you exist in that market. And why this is happening? Simply because it's a small market. We all know who is who. So building credibility and level of expertise is very important. Building the trust is very important, but you can only do that by building relationships. And the worst thing you can do is that when you are starting to build a relationship, and you are still at the early stages of this relationship, that you start selling from day one. I know that we are all eager, excited. We want to get the deal. We want to really make more money. We maybe need this money, but we need also to be careful about how we are building the relationships, because building relationships would take time, so that the trust is established, so that the credibility is established, and that people are going to be convinced that you have the right level of expertise for them. So it takes a little bit of time, but it's a lot centered around that. And of course, it is going to rely on your own efforts. Like the more you push your brand, the more your brand will get bigger. The more you are laid back or you are hidden, right? When I say laid back, it's not because you don't want to work, but like the more you are not visible, maybe because you are busy already working in your office or in your basement or in your house, and not being out there, then your brand visibility is not so big, simply because the brand is you. So the more you network, the more you are visible, the more you are in front of people, the more your brand would be visible. And this is one of the drawbacks of personal branding, is that it's extremely related to the individual, and then it's based on the individual's behavior that the brand would grow or stagnate. So you need to be very careful about how you're building your brand and how you are managing your personal brand if you are trying to grow that and you want to be known in what you're doing. So this is going to rely a lot on your personal efforts and what you're trying to do to push that brand. So please, again, if you have questions or thoughts, or if you want to challenge an idea, feel free. I am even happy when someone is not agreeing with me, so that we can have the debate and then increase the engagement that we are having through this webinar. So please feel free to drop a message in the chat or to open your mic and ask questions. Now, when we have established the fact that the personal brand is about the individual, so now let's understand what is the relevance to you as the individual, how the brand is relevant to you. So we spoke about trust. Trust is extremely important, but trust is not the only factor, right? Why? Because let's start from the basics of marketing is about talking to the emotions. Trust is rational. So trust is important, but it's not enough by itself. So people sometimes they want to build trust and credibility before building the relationship. And sometimes this is not going to help you to get noticed. Why? Because trust and credibility is rational. So usually in a decision-making process, just to give you some universal statistics, so there are a couple of statistics that happened around communication, and we say that once we see a certain type of communication, 65% of our decision-making process would go about the emotional connection that we got with this communication. And the 35% is divided between trust and credibility. So if you want to hang all your diplomas and certificates and training certificates on the wall, this is just around 12% or 15% that you are convincing me to make a decision towards you. So I, as much as I love education and certification, that's great because it's going to build up your expertise, but hanging them on the wall is not enough. It's not enough also to build the trust, is the relationship and the emotional aspect. So you need to get noticed. You need to stand out from the crowd, right? Like if I want to go to relate to the topic that we're doing, I can guarantee you in this market we have probably, if not thousands, many hundreds of marketers, social media managers, social media experts, brand experts, marketing experts who are freelancers, solopreneurs, one-person business, two-person business, and big organizations. So it's extremely crowded, extremely crowded. And then let us also be honest, you will have someone like, let's say you want to go and create a logo, just put a note on your Facebook or on your LinkedIn. You will get probably hundreds of messages. This person can do it, that person can do it, I can do it. And then if you ask about the price, it's like all over the place. You will have someone who will do a logo for you for $50, and you have someone who will do a logo for you for 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, $20,000. And it's like, what's the difference? A logo is a logo. No, it's not. I'm not going to dive a lot into that, but all what I'm trying to tell you is that you need to get noticed and you need to stand out from the crowd. Right? So how am I going to make a selection? Let's say I need someone to do a logo for me, or to do my marketing strategy or my social media calendar or my social media strategy. How am I going to stand out when I receive hundreds of people who are going to tell me I can do it? Right? So we need to find a way that our personal brand, our personal identity, our brand identity is going to make me stand out from the crowd and get noticed. And of course, because it's around the individual and because we are building relationships, we need to be great storytellers. We need to have a relatable a relationship so that I can feel you and you can feel me, so that we have this kind of chemistry and affinity together. Now, this is why it's relevant, but then how am I going to build it, right? Uh, building building a personal brand, now whether it is a corporate brand or a personal brand, you need to have core values. Like each one of us have values in life. Maybe my values are different than yours, but this doesn't mean that I am wrong and you are right, and you are wrong and I am right. This is not at all what we're trying to say. All what we want to know is that what are your values? And usually you operate, or you should operate, based on your core values, your individual beliefs and individual values. What are the red lines that you would never cross? How would you handle a customer complaint? How you're going to handle the relationship that you are building with your customers? And it's very important that your customers understand the values. Why? Because values are emotional. and you want to build this relationship with the customer, and then the decision-making process of working with us or not is emotional, right? So you need to keep this in mind. So core values are very important. And now you want to announce them officially or not, or package your brand around your values. This is a different discussion. When we talk about personal brand, when we talk about corporate brand, usually corporations are going to announce their values. Usually, when you go on their website, you will find the values of a certain corporation. But for individual and personal branding, you might or you might not announce your core values, but definitely your brand identity and your business and the way you conduct your business should be around your values. Then you need to understand what are your strengths and what are the skills that you have. So here you need to be extremely important, I would say, extremely honest with yourself by really identifying your strong points and skills. I always say that no one wants to call his or her own baby ugly, right? So all newborn in the eyes of their parents, they are the most beautiful baby and they are amazing, and there are no flaws in them. So it's the same when we are standing in front of the mirror and we are having a reflection, self-reflection, self-evaluation of our strong points and our skills. Very rarely we're going to acknowledge our weaknesses and the skills that we don't have. So we try all the time to, or we tend all the time to overestimate who we are. So it's very important to be very honest and say, you know what, like if let's say I want to be a great marketer, but I don't have skills in graphic design, maybe let me not pretend that I can do the best graphic design for my customers. Maybe I can do the greatest strategy, I can do the best social media calendar, I can give them, great insights on product portfolio, pricing, and whatever. But when it comes to execution of design, it's not me, or I am going to outsource it or partner with someone. So it's very important to be honest with your customer and with yourselves to know how you're going later to spin the message of your value proposition and unique selling proposition to the customer, so that they build this affinity with you and they decide if you are the best person who is out there to help them, or if there is someone else who is better than you. And there is always someone who is better than you. There is always someone who is better than me. But I always say that the relationship that I build with my customers is going to define if they are going to work with me or not. That is based on the relationship, on the emotional relationship that we have together. Like, do we like each other? Are we comfortable when we have a discussion? Do we feel that we are in a friendly environment? Then we start talking. Do we trust? Do we know that this person has the expertise and the skills so that they can help us? So really identifying your strong points and your skills is important, because when you, for example, let's say that you still want to deliver the graphic design, but you're not great at doing graphic design, maybe you say, okay, you know what, I want to learn that. And then you start going into training sessions, you take courses, you might have a mentor, you might have a coach, and this is how you start building these skills that later you're going to incorporate into your business and into your personal brand. Then, of course, you need to look at your target audience. So the biggest mistake that someone can do is when I say, or when I ask, who is your potential customer? And the answer is anybody could be my customer. That's very wrong. Not everybody could be your own customer. Every customer has different preferences. Every target audience or segment have specific attributes and needs. And you might not be the one who is responding to these specific needs of a certain target audience or segment in the market. So it's very important that you define your target audience, right? And here you can do one of two things. Either you say, this is who I am, and it's very difficult to change me. So this is what I know, this is my expertise, this is my field. And then you go and you search in the market about which target segment, which target audience is going to respond to what I know or who I am. Or you say, I am flexible, I have many skills, but I didn't yet decide where I am going to zoom in and on what I want to focus. Then you go and you do a market research, you do an analysis, you identify the target audience. Probably you want to say the ones that might resonate most, or the target audience that have the most population in it, so that I have a bigger chance of having more customers. And then you tailor who you are to the target audience needs and demands. So either way, either way, you need to define your target audience, because your communication is going to be should be tailored to that target audience, right? Like, for example, let's say that you are, let's say, a travel agent, and you want to advertise for a cruise ship or cruise tour. So the question is, am I going to target now the seniors who are retiring and going, on a tour? Or I want to target the young generation who are having a summer break, or now we are getting into March break and go on some vacation, because the images is going to be different. The story is going to be different. The value proposition is going to be different. So I cannot say, this is a cruise tour, and I just put an advertisement, blanket advertisement to the whole market, hoping that I am throwing spaghetti on the wall and something is going to stick. Otherwise, it's not going to work like that. It will be a waste of money, waste of time, and you will not have great result. I see a question here from Andrea. What is one of the strongest way to identify your target audience with personal brands? I know that corporate brands use surveys. Well, Andrea, it's almost the same, but of course you are going to do it probably at a smaller scale for two reasons. First of all, for budget purposes, because market surveys could tend to be expensive, but also as a person, as an individual, you have a limited amount of reach. Like, even if you are extremely ambitious as one person, let's say a business of one person, and you're building your personal brand, let's say you can handle a maximum, let's say, of 7, 6, 5, depending on what you're doing, 10 simultaneous customers. So the 11th and the 12th and the 30th, they have to wait, right? Whereas when you are a huge corporation, like, for example, think about it. If I take a small convenience store and I take, let's say, one of the big brands, Superstore, Sobeys, right? In one Superstore or Sobeys, you can have at the same time maybe hundreds of customers, and you will not feel that it is crowded, and the cashiers are able to handle the whole business. Whereas if I am a very small convenience store, when I have 10 people in the store, I already feel that I am overwhelmed, and they are already waiting in line for 15 minutes to pay. So the customer experience is very different. The expectations are very different. So when you are building your personal brand, you can do surveys, but you need to be careful about how you build the survey. And also, the survey topic is a completely different, I would say, not hour, I would say a couple of hours of a webinar to talk about how we do the surveys, how we craft the questions, how we build the questionnaire, how we identify the sample, the audience that we want to survey. So you just need also to look as a small business and individual. Uh, Ask around, right? Ask people for their honest feedback, and when you do that, this is going to be what we call qualitative surveying or qualitative research, and it's not quantitative. So what it means that if you go and interview, let's say you have identified a potential target audience and you say, okay, I want to interview 5 or 10 business owners of the target audience to ask them about how they would feel working with a company like mine or like me as an individual. And then once you ask them the questions, and it's more like probing questions and back and forth, you are able to form an opinion. But then you cannot say, let's say if you interview 10 persons and then 6 of them said, yeah, you know what, I think that I don't have a problem working with someone like you. You cannot come and say that 60% of my target audience said that they are willing to work with me. This doesn't work in qualitative research, but at least it will give you an indication, and where you say that the majority of people that I interviewed are inclined or are positive for working with an individual like me. So it will give you an indication, but it is not exact science. If you want to have quantitative surveys, like you want to get X% of people said, and hence I know that I have a potential of 3,000 customers in HRM, then you need to do a very solid research on a representative sample that is scientifically selected in the proper way, and then you can do the quantitative analysis. So I hope that I was able to answer your question, and if you want to have a follow-up, feel free to add it to the chat. Yeah, you are welcome, no problem. So this is about the target audience, and then finally we're going to look at your unique value proposition. So when we look at unique value proposition, and again, I can talk about more than a couple of hours about how to do what we call the unique value proposition or the unique selling proposition. Sometimes you see it as UVP or USP. So we need to be also very honest with ourselves. What does it mean to have a unique value proposition? The word is saying it's unique, meaning that no one else has it. And nowadays, you can understand how difficult it is to be unique, right? The market is overcrowded. Actually, the market is not anymore confined to the geographical market. Our competitive landscape is not confined to our geographical market because of technology. Right. So nowadays, someone in, I don't know, in the Far East or Eastern Europe or Africa or Latin America or Caribbean is able to deliver in Nova Scotia online. Right. So how are you going to compete against all that? How are you going to build this kind of unique value proposition? So there is a checklist. I'm not going to go through the whole checklist of a unique value proposition, but the first thing is that to be unique, how difficult would it be for your competitor to offer what you are offering in the way that you are offering it, right? So if it is difficult, but just for now, but later they are able to do that, but it's just going to take them some time, then you just have a very circumstantial short window of competitive advantage. Because at some point they are going to play catch up and they will be able to copy you or do things even better than you. So nowadays, and let us be realistic, that there is really nothing unique anymore in products and services. Like, pick any product that you think is unique. Look at Tesla, right? Tesla, when they started, they were unique, right? Now you have every other brand who has electric cars, right? But Tesla didn't pretend that their unique selling proposition was just being electric cars, because they put their technology as an open source. Like all their patents, they didn't lock them. Anyone can take a patent from Tesla and use it and build their own cars, and they opened it for everybody. So this was their strategy, right? But for any other product, anyone can copy it, right? Anyone can do a slight design change and then you call it a different product. So nowadays, the uniqueness is becoming more into the relationship, into the way you do business. The uniqueness is more about the way you handle your customer, right? On top, of course, of trying as much as possible to have, a unique product or service, but it's becoming more in your processes and in how you do business rather than in the product or service itself. So you need to find what is this unique selling proposition. And this unique value proposition has to have value for the customer. So the perceived value from the customer side or from your target audience is extremely important, right? So I will give you an example. Like, let's say that you are a loyal customer of a hotel brand, right? Not to name any hotel brands, right? And then every time one of their unique value proposition, let's say that every time you pay $250 a night, they offer you one free coffee. Like, wow, but what an achievement. The value is so low versus of what you're paying that you really don't care anymore about this free coffee, right? You want something a little bit more because you expect more from that brand. So the unique value proposition is strongly related to the perceived value of what I am paying for and what I am getting from you. And when we look at the perceived value is not only the dollar figure. The perceived value is, did you solve my problem? So this is an emotional decision. Did I feel happy because I used your product and you solved my problem? So this is an emotional behavior. Uh, uh, did I get what I really was promised? And this is a mix between emotion and now rational. And how did I feel when I interacted with your brand? Did I feel that I was valued, well served, respected? Was it easy to do business with you, or it was extremely difficult? You needed me to fill 15 forms, or no problem, just like let's do business together. So all this going to put together the perceived value. And the unique value proposition has to have a very high level perceived value from your customer. Otherwise, it's not going to resonate with them. Otherwise, at the contrary, they might feel that this is a ripoff, or you are in a way insulting their intelligence, right? So this is why we need to be very careful about how we are working on our unique value proposition, and it takes lots of time to identify it, right? I would say usually it's a couple of months of research, of discussions, of brainstorming, of benchmarking, and then looking at our strengths, skills, values, the target audience, and then we craft the unique value proposition that is going to resonate with our target audience. We need to look at the brand assets, because now that I did all that, I need to now look at the brand assets. The brand assets, so if you look at the brand that I have here, the logo is a part of the brand asset, but it is not just the brand, right? So you first of all, you need to look at the brand identity, right? What this brand is going to reflect. Is it going to reflect the jester? Is it going to reflect Mr. Bean? Or is it going to reflect Oprah? Is it going to reflect James Bond? So who is this brand? And then you need to live it to the fullest extent of the brand identity across all your marketing material, across all your communication, across every single interaction with your customer, right? And then when you build this brand identity, right? Let's say that now you have your logo, you have your business name, you have the colors that you have selected. And again, selecting colors, please, this is a science, right? So like today, we're not going to go deep into designing a logo or deciding on a brand identity, but using colors is a science. Like, it's not like I woke up in the morning and they decided I want to use the cyan as the logo for the arrow. And there is a big, I will not take you through the exercise that we did to develop the logo that I am having, but every single logo should have a story and should resonate with the target audience. So if you want to select the black, the orange, the pink, the red, the yellow, the blue, the purple, brown, any kind of color, you need to know why you are selecting it. It's not because, oh, I like it. Because remember what I said is that brand and brand identity is going to stick with you almost forever. So it's very difficult to rebrand. It's very costly to rebrand, especially when you become more and more known in the market. So once you have the brand identity, of course, as a small business, the one major communication tool is a website. So you need to create a website. And why the website is important? Because nowadays, let's say that you meet randomly with someone on the street and they tell you, oh, I do that. What is the first thing that you're going to do? You're going to go on Google search that name and find the website, hopefully, and find their social media. So if their website and social media content is not resonating with what they communicated to you on the street, that's it. That's it. You're not going to even think about this individual again. At the contrary, you say like, you know what? It's nonsense. It doesn't look legitimate, or they are not serious. Or think about someone who posted on their LinkedIn or Facebook 3 years ago. They never did a post, and they told you that, yeah, we are active in the market and whatever. Maybe they are. But remember, I said that a brand identity as a personal brand depends a lot on your efforts and how you are making yourself visible. So the less visible you are, the lower is the trust credibility in the market, because it's an individual and personal brand. So you need to be out there, you need to be active, you need to be up to date. So having a website, of course, that is going to have your color codes, your brand guidelines, your brand colors, and all that you define, and you don't move around. Like, you stick to your branding guidelines 100%. Then, of course, we spoke about social media content. And then finally, you're going to have an offline presence. Being only online is not enough. You need to show up at events like Digital Nova Scotia is doing lots of, I would say, after hours and events. Definitely be there. The Halifax Chamber is doing, probably your regional business association is doing. You might have a group of friends who have a small networking group. So please go be there. Because as an individual, you don't have the money, you don't have deep pockets that big brands and big corporations have to just put in PR and advertising and all that, right? You don't have. I don't think that you are able to spend $5,000, $6,000 a month just on marketing and advertising as a small business or as an individual, especially if you are in the early stages of building your personal brand and your business. So your other only opportunity is to be physically present with other people, so that you have this kind of relationship and talk one-on-one with individuals and be there. So please don't forget your offline presence, because it's going to reinforce your online presence, especially in small markets like ours. And then this is the final slide that I have to show you. And then if we'll open the floor for the final Q&A, if anyone has to ask questions. Now, what is the difference between personal versus corporate branding? There are a few differences, but the core is the same. Like, we need to look at values, we need to identify target audiences, but there are a few differences about how we handle the brand. So when we look at identity and ownership in personal brands, we spoke about that at the beginning, that we are representing an individual. So we are representing ourselves. It is centered around the person. So we need to look at the skills, at the expertise. We spoke about your personal values, and of course your personality. If you are an outgoing person and an extrovert, usually your brand is representing you like that. If you are an introvert and you are a person who is more calm, usually your brand and the way you talk to customers and the way you compose yourself with customers, even your communication, the language that you use is going to reflect who you are. Whereas when we look at the corporate brand, it's actually more centered towards the organization. It's not about the individual. Like the founder can go or stay. The CEO can leave or stay. The business is not going to be affected. The business image, the business values, the corporate values are not being affected. So the identity is built around the organization, and also it is around the values of the organization now. It's not about the values of the individuals within the organization, but your corporate values. Of course, you will have a vision and a mission around that, a business reputation. So it's actually representing a collective entity and not an individual. In your personal branding, you are around the individual. Now, when we look at the purpose and the goals that we want to achieve in personal branding, so here we're, of course, trying to establish credibility, right? But through what? Through communication, through leadership, through building relationships. We want to influence. We want to be influencers, right? This is why, the influencers on social media, they are not corporations, with few exceptions, because they became global, right? If I want to take Kim Kardashian, of course, she's not acting. She's using her personal brand, but there is a corporation behind her brand. But if you look at a local influencer, they are just the individuals. So it's around the individual to influence their community. And this is how you're attracting, the clients and the customers around you. Whereas in the corporate branding, you are more focusing on marketing positioning, on the customer loyalty that you have, loyalty programs as well, competitive advantages. So in a way, you are more structured when you are building a corporate brand. Why? Because it's going to help you to increase your brand equity, right? And in a way, brand equity goes into your balance sheet, meaning that this is an asset. So if you are able to grow your brand to a certain level where when someone would want to purchase your business because of your brand, then you have built brand equity. It has value. You can charge for it. You can make lots of profit out of a brand identity if it is a very strong one. So this is why it is considered an asset for corporations, but as well for you as a personal on a personal level, you can start building this equity. But usually, it's very difficult to sell a personal brand unless you become global. You become, you make a difference in the world. And then this, like we have many brands in the world that are related to surnames of people who created this brand, but now this family is not even yet is not even anymore in this organization, but still everybody is using the brand name because it has a very big brand equity. Then we look at the messaging and the tone, right? The messaging and the tone, usually in personal branding, we are very personable, relatable, very authentic, human, right? So it's like usually you talk the way we are now having a chat. Whereas when you look at corporate branding, it is much more structured, right? So your messages are crafted. The words that you use when you do external communication are very well chosen. They need to fall under the brand guidelines, under the communication strategy. So everything is unified and aligned at a corporate level. When we look at longevity and flexibility, we spoke about that for the personal brand, is that your personal brand evolves with your career, with your character as well, with your experience. So you might be able to, in a way, pivot or adapt and evolve your brand over time. Whereas in corporate branding, it is usually more long term, very stable. Like when you want to change the brand, you think about or update the brand, do a, let's say, a brand redesign or rebrand completely. You really think a lot about it, and you think about the impact that is going to happen on your market share, revenue level, and all that. Then you have the trust and relationship. Of course, it is extremely important on an individual level. So we look at the personal reputation, credibility, and what others are talking about this person, right? So every time you meet someone, probably you go and see if you have a connection in common, and you try to ask questions like, who is this person? Is it reliable? Is this person trustworthy, right? So there is lots of individual trust over there. In the corporate environment, the trust is built not around the individuals, but around the products and services, the reliability of products and services, the quality of the products and services, the customer experience, the customer journey, of course, is going to be a big a component of the decision-making process if a customer wants to remain loyal or not to that brand. And finally, when we talk about marketing and presence, as an individual brand and personal brand, usually you are around social media content creation, and you try to just you be yourself. You are the face of the organization as well. Whereas in the corporate branding, it's very based on advertising, PR, public relations, and campaigns, partnerships, and the corporate identity of the brand. And this takes us to the last thing when I say that the personal branding isn't only about promoting yourself, it's about forging authentic connections and making meaningful contribution to the world. When I say to the world, it could be to the small world that you live in, which is your community. And now, if you are able to make it to a much bigger world, like even beyond your geographical area, then this would be even much better over time. So that's it. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to me, for Andrea to ask this question. Now, I don't know if we have a couple of minutes. I know that we reached the end of the session, but if anyone has any questions or any thoughts, please, the floor is open. Yes, Azuka, go ahead.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, I didn't know that I
Yeah,
was muted.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll have to thank you for all that you have said. And I don't have any serious question to ask, but just to thank you because this is a topic that I'm very much interested in. And I hope we'll have more things to do together. But I also want to ask, just
Mhm.
side, um, corporate branding and personal branding.
Yes.
What do you think is the key advantage in each of them?
Well, I will try to answer in a short way. Well, personal brand is a lot about the individual. So if you think that you want to build a business around you as an individual, then definitely go for personal branding. But if you think that or if you have a vision that you want to grow your business to become beyond yourself, where you will have many employees and where at some point you want the business to keep on going, even if you are not in the business, then probably you want to think about a corporate brand, because then it will be very difficult to move your customers from a personal brand to a corporate brand and trust this corporate brand. Usually, what happens when you move from a personal brand to a corporate brand, there is a high risk of losing lots of customers. because the customers, and especially in small markets like ours, people trust the individual, so they want to work with you personally. So if tomorrow you have someone else, you know what, they will go to the next best friend that they have, or the next best individual who built a relationship with them, so that they give them the business to them, because they believe in the individual relationship. So it's very related to the target audience. So this is why, like, identifying the target audience is very important, and then the behavior and the needs of the target audience is going to define if they want to work with a personal brand or with a corporate brand.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, welcome.
So, I will get in touch with you.
Yes, please,
personally.
please, anytime, no problem. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. I have two questions here on the Q&A. Martha is asking, in today's digital age, which social media platform or online tools do you recommend to build a personal brand effectively? Well, very quickly, definitely, the usual suspect is like Facebook, Instagram, maybe TikTok, but also LinkedIn is important for your credibility as an individual. Even if you are building an individual and personal brand, being on LinkedIn is adding a level of credibility over there, because it's more a business environment. The level of discussions is very different than the level of discussions that we have on Facebook. So also it depends on your business. Like if you're selling products, like Instagram and even Pinterest is important to you, and TikTok if you have the budget and the time to do TikToks. But it's very very dependent on your business. We have someone who asks, how do you determine if your unique value proposition is resonating with your audience? Are there any methods to test it? Yes, of course, market research. So market research or interviews with potential target audience, you have a small selection. Let's say you take a sample of 10 business owners and you ask them, like, this is our value proposition. How do you feel about that? How would it resonate? Tell me a little bit more. Why yes, why not? So this is how you can test it before you go full-fledged with it. And how you determine it through, as I said in the presentation, benchmarking, research, competitive analysis, and competitive environment analysis. All this is going to help you to, in a way, zoom in on your best opportunity to define your unique value proposition. Very good. Any other questions? I don't know, Vimbaya, I don't know if we have more time. I know that we were scheduled for just 1 hour. It's already 5 minutes past 11, so it's up to you.
No, if people still have questions to ask, I guess we can go on for a little bit longer. We don't have anything scheduled on here, but yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anyone else has any question or thoughts about what we discussed today? No, seems that we are good.
Yes, you did a
Excellent.
great job.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Vimbai, as well, for having me here.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Mark. We appreciate you being here, and thank you to everyone who joined. We'll have a recording available for you if you'd like to watch it again. But yeah, please feel free to connect with Mark over LinkedIn, and good luck with your personal branding. Yeah, we'll end it here, and everyone have a wonderful rest of your day.
Very good. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
care.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.